Hi, Suzanne. So you are the guru on polyvagal theory and how we can use somatics and polyvagal in order to help heal our vagus nerve and nervous system, and in order to recover from trauma in a really big and important way to become more stable and more emotionally and mentally healthy. So can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you went into polyvagal theory, how it helped you, and what it's all about?
Sure, big question there. So I'm Suzanne Gundersen, and my business is Transformed Connections. And what I do is I help empower people to transform their stress and reconnect with their bodies and their lives. And so I use a bunch of different innovative techniques that are based in neuroscience and somatics and energy methods, all to be able to help people come off of this polyvagal stress response. There's this bell curve that we know as the polyvagal stress response. It's how our nervous system reacts along with our brainstem to keep us alive and surviving. It doesn't always give us the strategies that we would want to have. It just keeps us alive. And so as we kind of evolve in life and we're wanting to grow, we may want to be shifting away from some of those survival strategies into real kind of living with genuine aliveness. And so that's going to require us to kind of leave states of survival strategy that keep us in freeze, that keep us revving in fight flight, and coming into to learn and experience safe connection in our body, and learn how to trust our bodies. And that's what really resilience is to trust your body and be present in the moment with it. So I just use the polyvagal theory as a map of that stress response to kind of identify and help people see where they're at, and then kind of safely help them, down regulate off of that stress response back to safe connection, maybe sometimes for the first time ever.
Yeah. And so I know that in your own life, you've had personal experience with how do I get out of this trauma? So what was your lowest point and what was your highest point emotionally and as a survivor yourself?
Oh boy. So my lowest point, I probably couldn't even tell you what it was because I was so frozen. I just lived, functionally frozen for such a long time. I didn't even know that I was frozen until I started to wake up, kind of, they call it waking up the tiger. I woke up this kind of anger inside of me that had never been expressed before, and realized at that point how I had just been stuck in freeze for 10 or 15 years almost. And yeah, and then once I experienced that anger and was able to kind of do something about my freeze and move through it, then I was learning how to build rapport with my own body and safe connection, and also getting healthy boundaries in my life to make sure that I could continue to practice safe connection with the people that were around me.
So I'm a survivor of sexual assault, and you mentioned something similar as well. So what was it that you felt like your body got through and needed to move through?
Yeah, again, back to, my body was so frozen. I was, at my highest, I weighed 450 pounds. That was how I numbed out from all the abuse that was living in my body. And, waking that abuse up and giving it a voice and allowing it to express itself was so important as a part of my journey. And then as I did that, that was naturally kind of transforming. I was no longer carrying that as my own burden. And so the weight started to naturally come off. And that took a period of about 15 years, because at the time I was doing it, there weren't tools and techniques like there are today. There wasn't an internet like there is today. You couldn't just Google anything. There was a lot of, like blind spots in my journey of healing because there wasn't a big community of people. There wasn't a big momentum behind the learnings that were out there. I tried a lot of things that didn't work. So it took me a little bit longer. But my body was frozen and needed to wake up and process that anger and go through fight flight and then learn safe connection. I was surrounding myself with all the wrong people that were triggering me to stay and freeze or be angry. And it wasn't their fault. It was just how my nervous system was at the time and what it was, resonating with. And it was a slow journey, but it's one I made it through.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because I identify with what you're saying a lot. And even on a personal level, what I had survived was very extreme as well. And so I found that I had survived, I was drugged, abducted, and gang raped. I was nearly killed 2 times by my abusive husband, to the point where I lost my pregnancy, my child. And then just recently, after 7 years of calm and 7 years of really, getting my life back on track, my daughter was abducted by my ex. And so that's dealing with a huge amount of trauma. But I think what I can say is that because I went through so much extreme trauma, and it was to the point where my lowest was I had such bad migraines, I couldn't function. And the migraines just literally, they would last for weeks and weeks. So that was like somatic pain that was just not going to go away. The anxiety was so bad, I could barely breathe. The panic attacks were so bad, it was debilitating. And so going through that recovery and working with all of the techniques that I work with, there were polyvagal techniques that I work with along with drama therapy, somatic experiencing therapy. What else did I use? Exercise therapy, nutrotherapy. So combining all of those modalities and techniques from those events that happened 7 years ago and growing through those, it's interesting to see how now I'm back in these extreme situations. Thankfully, it's not as bad as it was, but even going through with a child abduction and having to deal with all of that, I see that I'm a different human being, that my body responds differently, that my tools are different, and that my resiliency is a lot more stable and my bounce back is better. So it's interesting to see that I've actually developed into a different human being from those abuses and that recovery to who I am now, which is still, obviously like going through trauma is always going to be a process, and I'm still growing and I'm still expanding, but having these tools that you're using and that I've, been able to amass over the years has really, it's interesting to see that post-traumatic growth, and then how, when you're put right back into those triggering circumstances, how your body reacts, how your mind reacts, and how you're able to function a lot more. Like I'm not going through those panic attacks right now. I'm not going through those migraines right now. Maybe they'll come up super quick for like a few seconds, and then I'm able to move out of it. So it's interesting to really see that example of you can eat, however extreme your life has been or your experiences have been, your body system can adapt.
Oh, well, that's the definition of neuroplasticity, right? We're no longer bound to our stress and trauma. We have the ability to adapt and grow and shift. And, Dr. David Berceli was one of the first people that I learned from, who told me that, trauma is necessary for us to expand. We need trauma, because we can't wake up, to deeper levels of connection with ourselves if we don't have something that kind of, happens to us. So we have to kind of be thankful to our experiences and know that you wouldn't have grown how you did unless you had those and clawed your way through life to find the tools that you did. Same thing for me.
Exactly. Big time. Yeah. And so I think that's what at the end of the day you bring to the table in life. You're able to enjoy your life again. You're able to live a beautiful and happy, beautiful, happy moments, beautiful, happy times. They come there. This happens in phases. It'll come and go. But what you walk away with is, wow, I have empathy, I have tools, I have resiliency, I can help myself and I can help others. Because no matter what this is, we can move through it, Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm so delighted to be a part of your program and to be able to share some techniques in the class that I teach for you. And hopefully everyone gets a chance to watch that and really start to practice some of them and bring them into their life as a living skill and a toolbox for themselves.
I think that's amazing. And I'm so grateful that we did that class together. And I'm so excited to share it with everybody, because when it comes down to it, all of these modalities do come back to the vagus nerve and do come back to the nervous system. And it's all about what tools that we use are able to go ahead and foster and expand and grow that resiliency in order to keep us in that green, safe space emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. So I'm grateful that we had that, and I'm excited to share that with as many people as we can.